Everything went harder in the 80s. If you're a Gen Xer or a millennial, you've probably said this 1,000 times. And you're not wrong. Imagine it's June 1984. You're a parent taking your 7-year-old to a movie. The poster shows a cute, big-eyed, furry creature. The rating is PG, parental guidance suggested. You're expecting a whimsical Spielberg-produced adventure, but 60 minutes later, you're watching a green monster explode in a microwave, spraying goop everywhere, while another one is being shredded in a kitchen blender. Welcome to the summer that broke the MPAA. Before 1984, the gap between PG and R was a wild, lawless wasteland. Movies like Jaws and Raiders of the Lost Ark showed melting faces and brutal deaths while sitting firmly in the PG category. But Gremlins was the final straw. It didn't just push the boundary, it nuked it. Today, we're diving deep into the film that was too violent for kids, too goofy for adults, and so controversial, it forced Steven Spielberg himself to invent a brand new rating, PG-13. This is the untold story of the most violent PG movie ever given a green light. To understand why Gremlins was such a shock, we have to look at the state of cinema in the early 80s. Back then, PG was a catch-all. It meant anything goes as long as there wasn't excessive profanity or explicit sex. Hollywood executives were addicted to the family adventure formula, but directors like Joe Dante and Steven Spielberg were deeply influenced by the grimy B-movies of the 50s. They wanted to inject horror into the mainstream. Critics at the time were starting to notice a dangerous trend. The Los Angeles Times once remarked that PG was becoming a mask for mayhem. Parents were walking into Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, only to see a man's heart being ripped out of his chest while he was still alive. Then came Gremlins. Warner Brothers marketed it as a cozy Christmas story with a cute mascot. But director Joe Dante, a protege of the legendary B-movie king Roger Corman, had other plans. He didn't want to make E.T. He wanted to make an anarchic, anti-consumerist monster movie. The media backlash was immediate. The New York Times described the film as a shocker that betrayed the trust of parents. It wasn't just the violence, it was the glee with which the film executed its chaos. When Mrs. Deagle is launched out of her window to her death, or when the Gremlins run a snowplow through a family home. That wasn't adventure. That was pure, unadulterated sci-fi horror. Let's talk about the scene that defined a generation's trauma, the kitchen fight. In any other PG movie, the mom would be a helpless victim, but Joe Dante turned Billy's mother into a ruthless survivalist. She stabs a gremlin to death, shreds one in a blender, and, most famously, cooks one in the microwave until it pops. Hollywood insiders were stunned. How did this get past the censors? The secret lay in the creature loophole. Because the violence was being inflicted on non-human monsters, the MPAA felt it didn't warrant an R rating. But for a child in the audience, the distinction didn't matter. The imagery was visceral. The legendary effects artist Chris Wallace created puppets that were so expressive and slimy that they felt real. In an era before CGI, every drop of green goop and every twitching ear was physically there on set. This tangible quality is exactly why the film holds up today, and why it was so terrifying in 1984. The media response to this scene was polarized. Some praised the technical genius of the puppets, while others, like critic Gene Siskel, questioned if the mean-spiritedness of the film crossed a line. Even Stripe's death, where he literally melts into a bubbling puddle of flesh, was described by some trade journals as unnecessarily gruesome for a holiday release. It wasn't just the visual violence that made Gremlins dark, it was the psychological weight. Ask anyone over 40 about the most disturbing part of Gremlins, and they won't say the blender scene. They'll tell you about Kate's Santa speech. Midway through the film, Kate explains why she hates Christmas. She tells a story about her father dressing up as Santa, slipping while climbing down the chimney, breaking his neck, and rotting there for days until the smell alerted the family. It is one of the darkest, most un-Spielbergian moments in cinema history. Legend has it that Warner Brothers executives begged Joe Dante to cut the speech, claiming it would ruin the holiday spirit. But Steven Spielberg stepped in and supported Dante, arguing that the weirdness was the heart of the movie. This moment solidified Gremlins as a cult classic. It wasn't interested in being safe. It was interested in the messy, dark reality of life, hidden under a veneer of Christmas lights. Hollywood media later analyzed this as the birth of nihilistic commercialism, the idea that you could sell toys and trauma in the same package. By July 1984, the complaints reached a fever pitch. Parents were furious. Spielberg, who had both Temple of Doom and Gremlins in theaters simultaneously, realized the industry needed a middle ground. He suggested to MPAA President Jack Valenti that they needed a rating for movies that were too intense for PG, but not adult enough for R. On July 1st, 1984, the PG-13 rating was born. Gremlins was the catalyst that changed the entire spectrum of film ratings forever. In the decades since, the franchise has notoriously dulled its edges. Gremlins 2. The new batch was a brilliant meta-comedy, but it lacked the raw terror of the original. The 2022 animated prequel, Secrets of the Mogwai, is a fantastic show with a 100% Rotten Tomatoes score, but it's clearly designed for a modern, more sensitive audience. However, the shadow of the original still looms large. Hollywood has spent years in pre-production hell trying to figure out how to bring Gremlins back. And finally, Warner Brothers confirmed that Gremlins 3 is arriving in 2027. With Chris Columbus, the writer of the original, directing and Spielberg producing, fans are asking, will they return to the horror roots? Or will it be another sanitized reboot? Gremlins is a time capsule of an era when Hollywood was willing to risk total failure just to get genuinely weird. It represents a time when family entertainment didn't mean safe entertainment. Critics today look back at Gremlins not as a mistake, but as a masterpiece of tone. It's a film that respects children enough to let them be scared. It's a movie that tells us that under every cute mogwai, there is a monster waiting to be fed after midnight. As we look toward 2027, we have to wonder, can modern Hollywood still make a movie this dangerous? Or has the firm line of the PG-13 rating made us too careful? Thanks for watching. If you were one of the kids traumatized by Stripe or the microwave scene in 1984, drop a comment below. Was it too much, or was it exactly what we needed? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the weirdest history of cinema. See you in the next one.